All right, let's call to order the September 21st, 2021 meeting of the Park and Recreation Commission. And the first item on the agenda is me trying to figure out deal with this camera, but it is what it is. Okay. Do we want to bring Alicia in? Do we want to? Is she ready?
She is here. So this is just a reminder of what the agenda is for tonight. And just to try to get Alicia out of the office as quick as we can. We wanted to put her first on the agenda tonight. So it's a little bit of a different schedule than we usually do. So she is here. And then tonight she is here to talk about our transition from an enterprise fund into a revolving and general fund combination for fiscal year 23. So I know we talked about this a little bit in some of the other prior meetings, but I just wanted to go through and talk specifically about, what it's going to look like and give you all the opportunity to ask some questions. And over the other two slides, I have just some basic information. And then I wrote up some questions that I thought were important to ask and to get answered. So with that, I would like to introduce Alicia. She is our new finance director here in the town of Littleton. So whenever you're ready, you can hop on in.
Great. Thank you, Alicia. Good evening, everyone. So tonight, what I wanted to bring up is I noticed in the audit, and I noticed just by looking at it, that we subsidize the Recreation Enterprise Fund. Usually enterprise funds are self-sustaining and they don't need a subsidy every year. And also parks and recreation usually are revolving funds and not enterprise funds. And that was an audit comment in our financial statements that I looked at when I came on board. So I was explaining to Alicia, basically, instead of us doing a transfer into the enterprise fund for her operational staff and herself, we would cover all of that in the general fund. We would rescind the enterprise fund and create a departmental revolving fund. And every year, annually, that cap would have to be voted on at annual town meeting, a spending cap. And I told her to look at like a 3 to 5 year range around of what she spends to come up with that number. Anything that is in when we close it to the general fund, I would then do a transfer to repurpose those funds right back to the revolving fund so that recreation isn't losing any of that revenue. They get to keep it in their new revolving fund. And then that revolving fund will be used to collect receipts for all her programs and to pay for all her programs. Everything else for her office and her staff will be subsidized by the general fund going forward in the general fund budget.
Let me see. Tim, can you switch over to the next page?
So Alicia asked me what role, if your role would change at all, and your role would not change. This is just an accounting change only. So instead of it being an enterprise fund, it's a revolving fund, but she would still be working with the Park Commission. That's not going to change. And as I stated earlier, her retained earnings, we would repurpose those right back into the revolving fund from the general fund so that you wouldn't lose it. That 10,000 doesn't apply because the statute I'm looking at Mass General Law, Chapter 4453E.5, it has nothing to do with that $10,000 threshold. What it does do is have an annual cap that has to be voted at annual town meeting. So the 10,000, if it's over that has nothing to do with it. No, your funds cannot be taken away. No, they cannot be sent to the general fund. They stay within the revolving fund. Operating budget will not be cut. We won't start her until next year. No staff cuts. And she told me about these special events and community education. She said they're really small. So I'm suggesting that they get subsidized by any revolving surplus in the beginning. And then she can request a general fund subsidy once that's depleted if she finds that's necessary, if the costs are just too high that the revolving fund can't handle it. I told her as far as capital funding, I'm fine with her submitting capital requests in the capital plan and us looking at that. And are there any other benefits or challenges not asked about? And I did bring up that it was brought up by the auditor. So I think that's about it. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Alicia, can you scroll down a little bit? I'm missing the last line.
Oh, Tim's got that. How come it's off the screen? That's
Like it's just off the screen for whatever reason.
essentially, Alicia had said her answer was that the capital funding was something that we definitely can move forward with. And then the last piece that I asked was, is there anything that we should know, either positive or negative, just so that we have all the information that we hadn't asked. And she had mentioned that the request did genuinely come from the auditors, which we had known that. We've talked about that before at previous meetings. So that's what that line item on the bottom had said, Mike.
So we had auditors actually recommend this approach?
Yeah.
Correct.
What auditors?
Melanson and Heath.
This actually seems like a great way to go. Is there a reason why this was, I'm just curious from a historical standpoint, why this wasn't pursued sooner?
Yeah, so this was something that, like, when I first came in, the department had previously been on a general and revolving fund. And the finance director at that time, when the previous rec director left, made the choice to convert the department over to an enterprise fund. So that's just something that, I've been working with the last couple of years. I've had conversations with when Steve Venuti was here as the treasurer, if that was something that we should rescind or not. Because typically recreation departments that have like golf courses or aquatic centers or community centers, right, those are the ones that typically have enterprise funds.
Right.
So I think it was a financial decision made at that time that they felt would benefit the town. And, as we've kind of changed and gone through things the last few years, we've realized that it's not in the best interest of the town, right, and it's not in the best interest of the department, right, honestly. So it is something that, especially being able to have all of the staff covered under the general fund as well as their benefits, that's a huge, I don't want to say a cost savings, but it's a huge help for us to be able to provide the services and the programs that we do, and be able to do it with our staff having, peace of mind that they have, right, jobs based off of, essentially commission, right? You have to make enough money in your programs to cover yourself for the year. That's a hard take for a lot of people, to yep, be able to work under those situations. So
from a retention standpoint, it makes a lot of sense. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yep. Excuse me, to give you a little background on this is what we did back in the day. And as long ago as the late 90s and early 2000s, the revolving fund would also have intermingled in it all of the registration fees for the sports leagues. And what happened was FinCom and the selectmen looked at those numbers, which were obviously inflated because it wasn't money that we really had, and said, well, this is where you need to be self-sufficient thing came from. Oh, you've got 400,000 in your revolving account all the time. Right. We're not going to provide any subsidies at all. So eventually we moved towards the enterprise fund because the idea was the department was going to get no money from the town. And when we first started that, we said, look, we can't generate the income to support this department right now. Well, you need to, was the response. So they did subsidize the director's position and some other things. And that sort of floated along because it became obvious as we got more progressive people on FinCom and Steve took a more active role that this department could never be self-sufficient if you're going to serve the needs of the community without charging them to death.
Yeah.
And this is where we are today. It makes more sense to go back to this, but you have to have people that are willing to realize that, the revolving fund is going to fluctuate and is not a sign of financial health.
Well, it kind of is, but
Well, no, but in the sense, Alicia, where we were collecting, think about all the revenue from soccer and baseball coming in and then being thought, well, you guys have a lot of spending money. So that's what I meant.
absolutely. In this case, and, Alicia and I were talking about this a little bit earlier, I really don't want to end up in a situation where we were in fiscal year 20, with COVID and having to ask the town for, essentially help with all of our debt to cover for that year because we still had to pay for staff. We had to refund all of the, registrations that had come through, and it absolutely decimated the department's budget. And it had nothing necessarily to do with anything that we did in house. It just was the reality of what happened with COVID. And I just don't want to end up in a situation like that again. So I do want to be able to work towards creating having money in that revolving so that if we're ever in a situation like that again, that, we can cover it without having to, be a burden to the town. Or, as we move forward and we want to get some of these projects done, as far as, fixing up playgrounds, parks, facilities, creating new facilities, it's going to allow us to be able to save up money, to be able to give something back in the time when, we may be able to come up with some sort of combined way to pay for some of these, whether it's a new field or, community space for us to be able to, run our programs. We still need to update all of our facilities, for ADA and AAB standards. That's something that we said we were going to do in the open space and recreation plan, as well as in the town master plan. So, we just haven't been able to make any headway. And I think a lot of these financial issues that we've had have really kind of held us back. So if this is an opportunity for us to try to help out the town and our department and to be able to try to move forward with some of the financial issues that we've had, I think it's worth, really making the effort with this to see where it goes. Alicia, in the future, if say that we did get a golf course or an aquatic center or something, it's relatively easy to be able to move back onto an enterprise fund if it was needed.
Yeah, you would just rescind again and vote yes.
Yeah. So it's a lot more fluid, I think, than, we felt in the past. So, if it's something that it's just not working or we feel like we're ready to go back to an enterprise again, it's fully within the ability to be able to do so. Questions, comments, concerns?
Do we need
I have a
to,
couple questions.
Go ahead, Saul.
Yeah, so in terms of the general fund covering staffing, is that the sort of permanent full-time office staff, or does that also include seasonal counselors and things like that?
Full-time only. The revolving would pay for the program staff.
Okay.
So we would include,
Um,
just as we do now, all of the wages and the expenditures into our creation of what the fees are going to be for the programs.
right. Okay. Yep. That makes sense. And I had another question, but it's now slipped my mind, so I'll come back to it.
Anybody else? Fred, Mike?
Nope, I'm good.
I'm all set. Do you need a motion to,
So this is something that I wanted to start this discussion. It's something that we're going to move towards. It would be an article on the
on the town hall meeting? Yeah.
spring town meeting, so not this fall. So this year we will still stay on the enterprise as we are, but going into the new fiscal year, so fiscal year 23, we would go on to this path. So I guess to kind of explain all of the leftover funds that we will have at the end of this year, that will be, if I'm correct, Alicia, you can correct me if I'm not, liquidated and put into the revolving to get us started. And then the general fund would cover the items that we put on the first slide that was up. And then from that point, once, we've got the revolving and the general fund set, it's just business as normal.
Yep. Alicia, I would just add that when we do close it, it gets closed to the general fund. So then I have to do another separate motion to transfer out of the general fund to your revolving. So it's two separate motions just to make sure you don't lose that money.
That's good. Yeah, that's good to know. Okay. So we'll just, and like I said, we have time because this is, where we're getting into spring town meeting. So we've got essentially a whole, 6-8 months left to go. We just finished summer. So it'll be here sooner than we know. But I just want to make sure that we, have plenty of time to discuss it, ask any questions that are needed, so that, we can all move forward, because you will have to take a vote at some point to approve and support this or to not. I would suggest supporting it just as the things that I mentioned previously, but you are your own board and you will do what you will. So it's just the start of a discussion of something that, is in fruition and moving forward. Did it come back, Saul? No, Saul. All right.
No, I'm good.
Okay. So, Alicia, is there anything else that you wanted to add in?
No, I think we've gone over anything that you need. Feel free to email me if you have any questions. If you need me to put anything in writing, I'd be happy to do so.
Thanks, Alicia.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Appreciate
See you
your
Friday.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Alicia.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. And I can send you you get the slides in the minutes anyway, but I can send those after the meeting. It might be good for Aaron and for Kevin to take a look at too, to see if they have any additional questions. You're not here. All righty. So we got commissioner updates. Anybody?
I have.
Sorry, Mike.
I have an update for CPC. They approved an application for CPC funds for boardwalks in Town Forest and Cloverdale properties. It was put underneath the designation of recreation. But in conversations, decision, and Alicia helped us with this, to move undesignated funds into the recreation bucket. So it's actually coming out of undesignated funds, but it's listed as recreation. Out of that meeting, there was a motion to reach out to town council and see what the best policy is moving forward. There are gray areas when it comes to preservation, you know, and the different aspects to how you utilize CPC funds. And so you can make motions and say, well, it makes, you know, you could put it into a recreation bucket, or you can put it into, you know, let's say an open space bucket. And so they were looking for a recommendation from town council, as well as the CPC guidance council, that we pay for it out of admin funds to decide what's the best way moving forward. You know, when it comes to some things like, you know, boardwalks. So the application was for $13,500.
Okay. But you said they're going to take it out of undesignated and put it into recreation. I'm not sure I follow why they have to do that, but.
Well, the reason being is we essentially only have these 4 buckets, but there's a 5th bucket that's kind of out there, and but
Right.
it's not a CPC category. You know what I mean? But you can put it into undesignated.
So it has to have a, I guess, subject, right? Before they will, so it can't just be considered undesignated.
Correct. Yep. It's going to be one of those. So it's going to be historical, housing, open space, or recreation.
Right. I just thought that you could put something under undesignated, but all right. But they're looking into having some sort of feedback from the town solicitor to kind of weigh in on that, and sort of what will go in the future under what bucket.
Yep. Yep. Okay. There's also you know, a committee that we pay for out of the admin funds that gives guidance for
Yep.
CPC. So we're reaching out to both of them, Carol and Mitt.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Fred or Saul?
Nope, I have nothing.
Nothing from me.
All right. Do you want to do the minutes from the last meeting?
So I wasn't at the last meeting. Can I, you know, if it's a motion to approve the minutes, can I still do it? Even
Yep.
I did read them.
There you go, Mike. That's all that matters.
Okay.
They look good to me.
Okay, so just make a motion and the other person second it.
Make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the August meeting.
I second.
All right, all in favor, Mike,
Yes.
Saul,
Yes.
and I'm yes. The minutes are approved.
Saul, you have a great view of your keyboard. It came on. Hey. Oh, now we lost your
I was
voice.
trying to figure out how to turn it around. Is it now showing me?
Yes,
It is. I'm displaying
Okay,
a list
how
of
about
all the
that?
positive things I've done in the past week. All right, next we have the approving the wages. Is that
Yeah.
correct, Alicia?
Got it. Yep. So let me switch over to full screen here. So, okay. So, I mean, this is something we do pretty much every town meeting, just because we're trying to implement the state's minimum wage increase up to $15 per hour. So we're close. We still have another year yet to go in this. But I figured I'd start with the Schedule C1 increase because it doesn't really affect the grid all that much. So this is what the community education or C1 schedule would look like. The step 1, grade 1 would be $14.25, which is what the minimum wage increases to on January 1st, it's 22. I don't know why I have 21 on there. Shame on me. Yes, this upcoming new year, it will switch over. And the first 2 rows of this schedule are for program assistance for any of the community education programs that we have. And then 3 through 6 would be for instructors. So it really doesn't affect this grid all that much. So I figured I'd start out with that because we have options on the next one. Any questions about the community education grid?
I have none.
I guess it looks like we go from, there used to be more differentiation between grade 1 and grade 2? Because there's not a whole lot there.
No, honestly, it was sort of an extension. If you look at our next one, they only go out to step 5. Why did this not work? There's like stuff underneath. Tim, I don't know if you can fix that to get the words on top because there's numbers on there we need to look at. So essentially it was a way if somebody was working as an assistant with an instructor and they had been there for over 3 years, they would just move on to grade 2. So it was kind of an extension of that. And then, as I had mentioned, 3 through 6 had meant to be specifically for the instructors themselves.
So that last bullet item, is that the increase from last year? Projected.
So we'll talk about that. I just don't understand why this happens every time. Because I put it in the right presentation size, so I'm just not getting why. Anyway, so this is the more complicated one. So when Steve Venuti was here as the treasurer for the town, we came up with a plan to go through this entire process of switching over to the $15 per hour minimum wage. So, like I said, we've gone through this a few times already where we've implemented this and asked a town meeting for it to be changed. So the option 2, we'll start off, I guess I should have made it option 1. The option 2 was the original that Steve Venuti had suggested for us to request for this town meeting. And so when Steve did created this document in Excel form to be able to sort of calculate the numbers, it allowed us to increase the rates and spread them out amongst the grid at the, what's the word I want to use? At the minimum required, right? So doing the calculations with his grid, the yearly summer seasonal cost would be estimated at around $230,000, almost $231,000, right? For this upcoming summer. That would be 10,000 plus over what was estimated for this past fiscal year. And there's not a whole lot that you can do about that, right? Because you're jumping from $13.50 an hour up to $14.25. So there is going to be definitely a pretty big rate increase. So option 1 was something I was kind of playing around with. One of the concerns that a lot of the recreation departments have had over the past few years is we're seeing a lot of places are having a harder time finding people to work jobs right now. And in some of those specific fields like aquatics, the more competitive you can be with pay, the more likely you are to continue to bring in that staff. I think Tim does an awesome job, and we do have, same thing with Kaz, we do have staff that returns every single year. But it's just, I wanted to be able to look at what it would be to increase the rates a little bit more to keep us competitive. And so the grid for option 1 expands a little bit further all the way down to the grade 12, which you can see, it would be $21 to $23 per hour for someone that would be like our Camp T director. So the difference between this is, the yearly estimated summer seasonal cost would be $236,400 for, etc. And then it would be $15,600 plus change over what it was this last fiscal year. Because we are able to create the rates with our programs, it's something that we could implement, something that we're paying people a bit more. But I wanted to leave this up to the Park Commission to discuss. And, we can definitely go with Steve's original option of, doing the bare bones minimum increase. But, there's another option if we want to consider, increasing those prices to try to make us a little bit more competitive as well.
How much of a challenge has it been for you to hire? I mean, qualified. Look at the whole spectrum. Have you had challenges? Getting qualified people for any of the positions? Let's say that you have for Camp T.
Knock on wood. I'm going to do that right now. We've had really good success being able, I think, with Camp T specifically, we're just really lucky to be able to have the staff that loves the program. John does a really great job. And we have people that want to come back year after year. Right. So we are very fortunate in that culture that we have developed for Camp Tehadawon. I see the same at the beach as well. But with lifeguards specifically and folks that have training specific to lifeguarding and hire, we are, it's harder to find those people. So that's something, I mean, Tim, you can weigh in a little bit more on your opinion on it, but anything that's going to be able to give us a little bit more of an edge and to be able to, give highly trained staff the rate that they should be paid. I want to be able to have that option, or I'd like to be able to.
So maybe I'm giving away my my ignorance a little bit.
That's okay.
Well, you have grades and you have steps.
Mm-hmm.
Since lifeguarding is more of a challenge. Can you how do you determine where to put lifeguards and what grades? Do you have a set bucket you have to put them in?
Yeah, so that's all created and organized by the personnel board. So a lifeguard 1, so somebody coming in for the very first time would start at a grade 5, step 1. So you can see the difference between one's closer to 16, the other one's closer to 15. And then you would go up to, I believe a 12. Tim, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is an aquatics director. So, you've got something that's a pretty well-paying job in the summertime, for someone that has a lot of responsibility, and they do, that's for sure.
Yeah, so I mean, just to kind of give a little context from a couple of years ago. So not only are we working with minimum wage, but we're also looking at, this year was a perfect case in point where us being ahead of the curve really helped this. So, there was a lifeguard shortage. You heard about it on the news. You heard about it everywhere else. On top of that, there was just a regular employment shortage. And, thankfully we came out, for a couple of reasons. Number one, we were ahead of the curve. We, pay our people really well and we treat our people really well. And, Camp Tada and Long Lake Beach are great places to work in the summer, especially, with the kids and teenagers and college adults that we have in town who fulfill these positions. So, a couple pieces to that, not only are we staying up with minimum wage, but, when you look at the grade 5 level, we're also keeping pace with the state. So 2 years ago, 2018, I believe it was 18-19, one of those seasons, the DCR made the decision to kind of move lifeguards into a different orbit. So prior to that, lifeguards were, between $10 and $12 an hour, and DCR was having problems covering their shifts. So they went and they bumped everything to 15. Same thing they did this summer when they couldn't cover it. They pushed it through the House and the Senate, and they tried to move lifeguarding pay to $20 or $25 an hour this summer. So, we also, exactly right. So, we kept pace with, the $15 mark, which kind of keeps us in that realm. And then as far as, like Alicia was mentioning, our step 12 is our camp director and our aquatics director, both which are, extremely highly skilled positions because of the certifications that they have to hold in order to be in those positions. They're also positions that require an adult to be in because they are 21 plus positions. So in order to attract those type of people, they do need to be decent paying jobs, because the reality of the situation is most people who are going to fill those roles are professionals, teachers who have the summer off, or people who have just been in the industry a long time, and some people kind of snowbird back and forth to fulfill these roles seasonally in different places. So that's kind of the big picture of what we look at.
Do you, Tim, have any preference over option 1 or option 2?
I mean, honestly, when it comes to the two options, I think, it's the reality is it's just, do you want to do this twice is what it is, right? It's, do we do everything now, take it to town meeting, get it voted in this year, and then do the same thing next year because we have to get caught up with minimum wage again. So that's really the thing. It's saves us money in the long run if we do it twice. It saves us time and effort if we do it once. So those are the two things to look at. I mean, from a financial standpoint, it probably would make more sense to go with a lower jump this time than do it all at once. But I think, both things have their merit, especially if we have people coming back. There's people who definitely deserve that little bit of the bump that they would get for this particular year. If we're starting from scratch and, we have people coming in, it might help us attract better candidates to fulfill roles that people have left for internships and things like that. So I think there's pluses and minuses on both sides, and I would be proponent for either.
Yeah. And I think this year, and it could just be because we're down a program coordinator right now, but we have had quite a few staff members that have worked over the summer that have stayed on to either become community education instructors or to help out with some of the after school programs that we have. And I think the rate of pay has a fair amount to do with that, to be quite honest.
Excuse me.
Good, Zoom tight.
Bless you.
So you definitely can ask questions, but it's up to you guys, whichever option you want to go. I talked to Steve Venuti, and he said he will not be injured if you don't go with his option. I also will not be injured if you don't go with my option. So it's fully at your own discretion.
Okay, so you have
I guess
your choice is to go with option one. Is that correct?
And I know I'm like, yes. The only hesitation is, you know me, I always am concerned about finances. So there's a part of me that also wants to, keep the rates as low as we possibly can. But checking that side of me to the side, as we're going to move into this change in having the general fund covering, our staff, we're not going to have as many financial issues with trying to throw all of the direct and indirect costs into every single program fee, right? So I know that the program fees will be able to handle that burden of the increased prices. Whereas if we were staying on the enterprise moving forward, I would suggest option 2.
Well, so at the
I don't know if that helped. I'm sorry.
I guess my question is, you've got about a $5,000 difference in
Right.
between the two options, and you're talking about spreading that out over how many sort of program participants?
So when we do our budgeting, we create an ultimate list of how many staff we're going to have at what rate, and then how many hours they're going to work. So that gets added into like the overall costs of, what the field trips are going to cost and what the buses are going to cost. And so, we calculate all of that, and that's, how we get to our rates that we're going to use for the year.
So the simplest way to put this is, if you just look at seasonal staff, by removing CAS from the payroll to cover this, you're going to be net like $43,000 in the positive already.
100%. Great way to put it, Tim.
So, I mean, I guess, looking at it, well, and from the town's perspective, then that's coming from somewhere else. But yeah, I guess the what I'm just trying to get to is it seems like the impact on program costs is going to be fairly small, because you're talking about $5,000 spread out over a lot of participants.
You're right.
And so if it's helping us be more competitive and making the jobs more attractive, I don't see that as a bad thing.
If you want to monetize it like that, Sol, it's about $2 per participant for the summer programming.
Yeah.
High five for our human calculator.
That was the number I was trying to get at.
I keep all of these things in Excel sheets.
So I'm happy to hear what the other commissioners think, but
Well, as we discuss this, one of my questions would be, do we want to find a way to include the other two in this discussion at some point?
Well, I mean,
That's a
that
good-
would be nice, but this is already on the it's in the town meeting, so we have to make a decision tonight, unfortunately.
So hasn't the article closed? I mean, haven't you?
So I have a placeholder, but if you decide on whichever option, I can input that tomorrow. So yes, it is closed, but we already have an article So that means we can kind of make tweaks and changes to it. It goes to the printer. We'll go over the schedule in a little bit here, I believe on the 28th. So as long as I can get this information to Joe tomorrow, he's totally fine with implementing whatever choice you decide.
So that answers Fred's question. There's no time present at this point.
I didn't know that they both wouldn't be here, or, well, I guess
my take, maybe it's because I'm not as much of a fiscal person, but I'd sort of lean on you and Tim, and Steve as well, what your direction should be.
Yeah.
Combination. You guys know the programs. What it takes to retain talent, and to bring them back. You know what the cost of the program. You don't want to overprice your program so that people don't come back for them. So,
right. Like I said, I believe that we can implement option one. If we weren't going to be switching over to the revolving in general fund, I probably would go with option two, Steve's. But I think that this is a good opportunity to, bolster the grid a little bit, just to give us a little bump. I mean, right now, trying to find employees is really challenging. So a lot of these basic positions, like our seasonal jobs would be in some aspects, we potentially, if this continues, could have a hard time finding people to fill positions. So I would rather give us the upper hand to be able to offer a little bit more and to be a bit more competitive.
Okay. All right. That I would go along with what you feel more comfortable or more what you would prefer. You've got to run the department. You've got to balance the budget. You've got to do all of those things. So if you're leaning that way, then I'd probably feel comfortable with, not probably, I would feel fine agreeing with it. Because you don't like spending any money normally. So the fact that you're willing to make this decision is very telling.
Yeah.
So
thanks for acknowledging my miserness.
Yeah, that wouldn't be how I described it, but good. That was a much better choice of words.
Scrooge McDuck over here.
So, so I know the way I'm leaning, and I guess it's up to Saul and Mike to sort of parse it out.
Would you like a motion at this point?
Sure, because I don't know that we're going to go anywhere else, and then make a motion, and we'll see what happens.
All right, then I move that we adopt the option one pay scale for Schedule C.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor, Mike?
Mike's yes.
Solomon?
Yes.
And I'm yes as well. So we move to adopt option one.
Thanks, guys. The employees will thank you in the future.
I hope you can update your review of department finances on the fly to incorporate our most recent decision.
All right. So review of department finances. It's like, I'll show you this and then maybe you'll change your mind. So for the department finances, we are actually in the hole this month, but that's pretty normal. So this is where the income falls off, but we're still paying for field trips and buses and staffing for over the summer. So it's usually pretty normal. And we're also not running the teen after school program this year. So, or at least for right now, we will try to get back into it. So we don't have as much income, revenue coming in as we, normally would. So, the reality is overall, so if you switch to the next one, Tim, we're actually 272,000 and some change in the positive. So we're doing really well. We're in a good financial place. So, if you have questions about that, happy to answer. But, I think, as I've mentioned before, I feel like the year to date is a lot more important to look at. It's good to check in on the monthly amounts, because clearly if we're minus 56,000 every single, like I said, it's pretty typical for September. Questions, comments, concerns?
Nope.
Okie dokie. Just wanted to give you an update on the program coordinator. So we do have 10 candidates that we're going to be interviewing. We had a lot of applicants. So we went through a lot of applications. So we settled on those 10. And we definitely would like to be able to make an offer of an employment, an offer of employment before the October Park Commission meeting. So we'll see how that goes. So our intent is we're going to be running our first round interviews this week, essentially, and into next week a little bit. And then once we decide what those top 3 or 4 are, then we will continue with a second round. And then hopefully we will have, a set list of what our 1, 2, and 3 are.
You meant at the next meeting, right?
Yeah. So at the, no. So I'm hoping that we'll actually be able to have offered and let the park commissioners know who we're bringing on.
Who's the hiring committee?
Myself, Kaz, John Kazanjian, and Tim.
Okay.
Nobody from the Park and Rec? Did I miss that?
I think we all
No.
declined to do it. It's more of an internal one, Mike. It's
Okay.
And we really want John to be part of it because, this is someone that he'll be working with in tandem. And we really do want, there to be a good symbiotic relationship, I guess you could say, between the program coordinators, because they should be working together and they should be helping each other out. It's only going to allow us to do better programming and be more on top of everything.
I'm not disagreeing. When I think I said Park and Rec, I meant Park Commission. So we don't want somebody from the Park and Rec, Park Commission on it? Park and Rec
So that was already decided at a previous meeting. Yeah.
Okay, I missed that then. Sorry.
That's okay.
how many, and if you said this, I apologize. How many applicants did you have?
I don't know the total number off the top of my head, but there was a lot that we went through.
Including what HR sent us, 53, but I would say about 20 of them were viable.
All right. No offense, but 10 candidates does not mean narrowed it down.
Well,
That's a lot of people to interview.
it is, but it's one of those things that all of the individuals had something unique that I think that they could bring to the department. And we want to be able to have a good pool of people to be able to, choose from. I think we've done it before where we've had, just a handful, and it didn't always work in our favor to do that. So it's not quite a shotgun approach because we definitely, the people that we chose have the requirements needed and, the background and experience that we're looking for.
Yeah, and I would say from the last one that the what was on paper and what showed up were not always the same. So taking a broader look at the candidates is probably a good idea. Get a little more
Agreed.
insight into who they are when you actually talk to them.
All right. Well, if you need some help with the questions, let me know. I helped develop the questions for us appointing Steve Venuti to FinCom.
Ooh.
You know, they were tough because what are you going to ask Steve? So I had the obvious, what's your favorite color? And then my other one, which was really a big hit with Kathy, was if you were a cat, what kind of cat would you be? And Steve aced those questions. So he is now our appointee to FinCom because he was very good with those.
I don't know how you
Forget
can ace those questions.
forget your charts and math. You got to be able to get the subjective questions down. All right. Sorry for that.
Steve has a great sense of humor, so I'm sure he just shined with those questions. All right. So moving on to town meeting schedule. I mean, the big important piece is, we're kind of through all the other important pieces. All the articles are in, the warrant has been like I said, we can still do some little tweaks and things like that. That's no big deal, but it'll go off to the printer on the 28th. And then town meeting will actually be taking place on October 25th. So please plan on being there at 7 p.m. And currently it is scheduled to be held at Russell Street Gym, as it has been in previous years. However, the middle school, because of COVID policies that they have right now, is using the gym as a cafeteria. So it's not known right now if that space is going to be able to work for that or not. So it might get switched over to the high school. So whatever, I guess, gets printed on the, articles that goes out to everyone's mailbox, that'll be the location. So TBD. All right. And the last thing that we've got on here is the acceptance of a $4,605 donation from the Denise Flaherty Pegasic Scholarship Fund, Inc. Ivan used to be a park commissioner and Denise used to work for the PRCE office. And they did their annual cornhole tournament, as a memorial to Denise for that scholarship fund. So they will be donating that amount to go towards our youth scholarship fund. And, you guys know that, but for the public, the youth scholarship fund is to help families that, may be in financial need. To be able to get them access to, whether it's the classes that we provide or the sports programming, anything, Camp T, stuff like that, swimming lessons, those important pieces. We help cover the costs for those families when they apply for scholarships. So this will be on the next select board meeting, and I'll send out a memo tomorrow just to let them know what you all decided tonight. And I think that's all the info on it. You guys have to vote, by the way.
Oh, to accept the donation?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to accept the donation of $4,605 from the Denise Flaherty Pejasic Scholarship Fund.
Second.
All in favor,
With great
Mike?
thanks.
All in favor, Mike?
Mike says.
Saul?
Yes.
And I'm yes as well. All right. Lovely.
All right, kids, that's all she wrote.
You know what, I did have a question. I was surprised it wasn't on the agenda. Just wondering, I might have missed it. Are we doing an Oktoberfest?
Yeah, we are, Mike. Tim,
Okay.
you want to go over any of that?
Sure. Yes, Mike, we are doing an Oktoberfest. It's next Saturday, not this Saturday. We had Touch Truck, which was incredible. It was probably the best attended Touch Truck we've ever had. It was wild. The Oktoberfest, everything's all set. Sub shop's doing all the alcohol. We got our liquor license approved 2 meetings ago at the Board of Selectmen. Andrea from across the street at the Littleton Cafe is taking care of all the food. We currently have 9 crafting vendors. We'll have all sorts of games and stuff going on. We have a inflatable corn maze. We have 2 bands who are going to be playing. So a lot of stuff going on, and it's it should be a lot of fun for all, and hopefully we can raise some money for the department and the scholarship fund and do pretty well this year.
Sounds like a great event.
Yeah. So check out if you haven't already, like us on Facebook and Instagram, and you can see these things in your newsfeed too. But we also have flyers and everything up around town. So we're putting the signs up next week when we're allowed to. And we'll have all that going on.
Sounds good.
All right. Hope to see you all there.
Any other events that we should know about that are coming down the pike?
No, just the holiday helpers, but we'll talk about that as soon as we get Oktoberfest off the plate. Really, we're trying, I think we already talked about this in a meeting 2 meetings ago, but we're, trying to turn that into more of a family-centric event, either a bowl-a-thon or something like that, rather than the road race, which is difficult at best sometimes to take care of, that time of year with the snow or just the cold or, whatever other things we run into. So that'll be our next one. And then we'll get into, planning out next year. So
Trunk or treat too.
Oh yeah,
So
trunk or treat. I'm sorry. Yes, that is Saturday, October 30th, in 300 King.
So
Saturday,
yeah, we've had
Parade as well. Or?
What's that?
What's that?
I said October 30th. Okay, great. Saturday.
Saul, what was your question?
Are we doing the parade?
Yeah, we will be doing the parade. I was going to do the parade inside the park this year to kind of keep it all in one location, but I found out that there's a story walk that's being installed in 300 King, so we're just going to go back to the original idea since there's stuff in the way.
There's no stuff in the way.
It's not Halloween themed, Saul, so we'll be doing it the old way.
It's an awesome story walk that will be installed in King. It'll be there for like a month. It's very nice. It's a very nice story, Tim. But it is not Halloween themed. You're correct.
It is not. Okay. Okay. The story walk is not Halloween, so that's not a good parade route. Okay.
Yeah.
Other question was there any resolution to the baseball field?
No.
Okay.
So that was something we wanted to handle offline. At this point in time, no, there has not been a resolution. And yes and no. With the new coach, Alex Winkleman, he is the high school coach. He will be taking over, and he and I have talked through a lot of stuff, and we're on the same page with a lot of things. So moving forward, working with Alex is going to be a great experience. He's a really nice guy.
Good. Okay.
That's all I can give you.
That's great. As long as there's no need for us to be intervening, then that's all good.
Not at this point in time.
Right.
Okay. Anybody else? All right. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, all in favor, Mike,
Yes.
Saul,
Yes.
and I'm yes as well. So we are adjourned.